Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another week of devotions. We are carrying on with some of the details from James chapter 1 that we looked at on Sunday, but only looked at briefly, and we'll look at in more detail during the week. And today I want us to focus on James chapter 1 and verse 17. When I was taught how to study the Bible, one of the keys, particularly with Old Testament study, was to ask the question, what does this passage teach me about God? One of the reasons for that was that life may change, society may change, culture may change, but God doesn't change. And so what we learn about God in the scriptures is always true and remains true for us today, even though the world of the Old Testament and the New Testament is very different from our world. God remains the same. And so when we come to a passage like James chapter 1, and in fact the whole book of James, which is a really practical book and really focused on the disciple, the Christian, and how we should live, we need to look out for those passages that teach us about what God is like, because they are important passages. And verse 17 of chapter 1 is just such a passage. I think it's so important to do this today. We live in a world where everybody has so many different ideas about different things. We all consider ourselves experts in different fields. Just because we've read a couple of articles normally, they are experts, but most of us aren't as expert as we think we are. And I think that's particularly true about God. We think we are experts about God. We think we know about God. And lots of people have lots of different ideas. But the truth is, we're only guessing. We need to go to the scriptures, God's word, what he has said himself about himself. And we need to learn about that. That is what is the most important place to seek knowledge about who God is. And so this verse is really important because it tells us about God. And what God was like then is what he's like today. So there are three things in verse 17 that we can learn about God. And the first is this: he is the giver of every good and perfect gift. Now, many of us know how to give good gifts. Every parent loves to give good gifts to their children. And when you see your children's eyes light up on their birthday or on Christmas Day because you've got that perfect gift for them and it's just right, well, there's great joy to be had in that, isn't there? Many people are incredibly generous to friends, to neighbors, to the needy, and give wonderful gifts to them. So we know how to give gifts, and we know how to give good gifts. But often our gifts aren't perfect. Sometimes they're inappropriate. Sometimes they don't last. Sometimes they're inadequate. Sometimes they're just plain and simply unsuitable. We had the best of intentions, but they weren't the right gift. And so even though we know how to give good gifts, often our gifts aren't perfect. But God is the giver of every good and perfect gift. God is perfect, and he gives perfect gifts. And I just want to say that his best gifts are the gift of creation, which when he created the world, after every day he said, and it was good. And remember, when he created human beings, he said it is very good. And actually, his gift of recreation, his gift of the new birth, his gift of salvation is also a very good gift that he's given to us, a perfect gift. And in Isaiah 53 verse 11, it talks about the fact that he is satisfied with that gift. It is a good gift indeed. So firstly, God is the giver of good gifts, good and perfect gifts. Secondly, he is the Father of heavenly lights. He is both the source and the origin of light. He began creation by saying, "Let there be light." His word is a lamp unto our path and a light unto our feet, from Psalm 119. His Son, Jesus Christ, is the light of the world. And he invites us to come out of darkness and into his wonderful light. He is the Father of heavenly lights, and when we come into his light, we discover what a good and wonderful thing that is. And so will you come in to the light and know the God who is light and gives light? And thirdly and finally, he does not change like shifting shadows. This is a good connection with the metaphor that God is light, because light does create shadows, doesn't it? And those shadows can move depending on where the light is coming from and depending on where we are standing. And so we need to be sure to get out of the shadows and into the light. But God doesn't change. We move. We find ourselves in the shadows when we should be in the light. But he does not change. I started with that point, and I want to finish with it. God is reliable. He does not change. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. You can put your trust in him. He's like a rock. He is a good and sure foundation. Anchor your life in him, because he does not change. And his gift of salvation is free and available to everybody, and it always will be. He will come one day as the judge, and he will be the final arbiter of what is good and what is true and what is right. And so give him your life. Trust your life to him. He does not change. He is faithful and true. God bless you. Thank you.